We will call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You join me in prayer for a minute. Thank you, Lord, for your love for us. Thank you for drawing us here together. I pray that you would guide our words, thoughts, and deeds today. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. Boom, boom. Roll call, please, Mal.
Commissioner Mapes, Commissioner Chamberlain,
Here.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Here.
Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Levanway, Commissioner Hankins,
Here.
Commissioner Turnbull, not present. Commissioner Aaron's not present.
I started doing the math. We still have 6, so we can still march on. Hey, commissioners, again, I would remind you to make sure your microphones are on and that you're up close enough to it. Not that we can't hear you, but people in Cyberland would like to hear you as well. Okay, approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to add or remove anything from our agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call there, please, Mel?
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes, Commissioner Chamberlain, Commissioner
Yes.
Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Levanway.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, that moves us to review and approval of the meeting minutes from September 3rd. Would anyone like to make a motion there?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Mr. Mason,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Chamberlain. Any further discussion?
Wait, we have 2 different minutes to approve? I thought there was only, you did
No,
the
this is for
agenda.
the-
Excuse me, yes. Sorry.
From September 3rd.
Yes.
Okay. Any changes to anything? We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call there, please?
Commissioner Mapes, Commissioner Levanway,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that moves us to public comment. If you would like to address the board, I'm setting up my stopwatch right now. If you'd like to address the board, we'd ask you to step to the podium, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes. I'll give you the courtesy 30 seconds left notice. Would anyone like to address the Board of Health? Mary, you're letting me down, but that's okay. We will close public comment, then we'll move to staff reports. Mr. Thorell.
Good morning. Okay, just some board updates that I have for you, starting with Michigan Association of Local Public Health Officers Retreat, which was last month, September 9th and 10th at Crystal Mountain. There was over 30 health officers that attended the retreat. I think really the biggest thing to talk about from there is that I was elected to the executive committee for MELF, which will basically give me some better access to MDHHS leadership. If, things are coming up, basically have more of a conduit to speak with them directly. And then other issues that come up that affect us statewide as far as the health department goes. And again, whenever my philosophy is whenever we can add voice to Northwest Michigan, that's a good thing, because they don't always listen to us down in Lansing. And, we want to make sure that they're hearing us. So I have a little bit of an update on the statewide sanitary code. And at the time I wrote this board report, it's a little bit outdated now. I did as I stated, met with Senator Singh and Representative Skaggs, a small group of health officers and environmental health directors. They asked for and we gave some feedback regarding draft 7, and they let us know that a draft 8 would be coming out soon. Well, that draft 8 came out last Friday. So, you know, they did incorporate a lot of the suggestions that we made on the minor technical aspects of things, which is good. What they had in draft 7 was a statewide point of sale program, as well as a risk-based evaluation program. And that is really, you know, I think everybody agrees that, you know, having statewide standards that are uniform and have a minimum standard for septic systems, we all agree on that. I mean, this really is a sticking point as far as what evaluations would look like. So now this draft 8, and it, you know, I had to read it like 10 times and probably need a lawyer to look at it to really decipher it, but it is fairly complex, and I'll try to give you the gist of it. So it says, you know, for evaluations no later than 5 years after rules are promulgated, which the Eagle has 3 years to do that. If a septic system is 20 years or older, and one or both of the following the property subject to one or both of the following, if it's within 500 feet of surface water, or within a high risk erosion area, critical dune, or 100-year floodplain, or there's no record of the permit of the system. So that's the risk-based component, okay, that those would have to be looked at. And also, beyond that, it's before there's a change in use that would either, you know, change the use or increase the use. That's one of them. Point of sale for those local units of government, counties, or local health departments that already have a program in place if this law passes, those would remain in place for 10 years and then would have to be phased out after that. Which means some of our townships that we have in our jurisdiction would be able to keep their point of sale program, you know, for that time period. So no later than 10 years after the rules are promulgated, if the system is 40 years old, no later than 15 years after rules are promulgated, if it's 30 years old, no later than 20 years after rules are promulgated, if it's 20 years old. And then 20 years after the installation of a new system. And then after either any of those inspections, which are considered the initial inspections, it's every 10 years frequency. So if you're confused, I understand, because it is it's not super clear. I mean, I kind of get the gist of it, but it is, yeah, it's a little confusing.
Sorry,
No, go ahead, sir.
is that like 97 pages of stuff, or is it something that you could send out to the Board of Health that we could read it?
Oh, I can send it to you for
If
sure. I mean, it is
97 pages. I don't want it.
it's not it's more like 27 pages, you know. So what's that? 39. Okay, 39 pages. And there's, yeah, I can send it to you if you'd like to see it. And I can tell you which page and which section has the part
If you
on
want to
the
do like a synopsis of it or what we need to read,
right.
that would be great.
Yeah, I think that's really what probably everybody here, you know, being county commissioners, really what you're interested in is the evaluation component part of it is probably what you're most interested in, because that's what's going to affect your constituents. That's what's going to affect everybody.
Send it to us electronically. That's
Yes, I can do that.
So, Jeremy, are you investing in new software to keep track of inspection dates?
Even our software now, kind of track software dates, but or permit dates. A lot of it is kind of records that
But yeah, to your point, I think what the point you're making is, you know, how are we going to know, right? what systems are 40 years old, what systems are 30 years old,
Well, and
especially in our old records. Right.
exactly. 40 years ago, were the proper records kept
In a filing cabinet,
in a
Right.
filing cabinet,
which is where they still are.
uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, at our office, but I mean, yeah, I mean, that's been a criticism or, that's been relayed to the bill sponsors is that, hey, all this stuff is great, but I couldn't tell you how many systems that we have that are 40 years old. I couldn't tell you how many are 30 years old. I mean, we would literally have to go through all the records, by hand. And as we digitize them, Jeremy's right. I mean, it does make things a little bit easier, but we still have to organize all those. And we don't have a way of like just typing in, show me all the 30-year-old systems, I mean, so there's a lot that would go into this to get ready for that. And I mean, part of it, I mean, I'm happy that it says it's giving like 10 years to get, to get to that point where you have to, find the ones that are 40 years old. We have 10 years to do that, right? It's going to take a long time. I mean, it says right in these bills that the state has to develop the database, the software. Well, anything that I've ever been involved with where the state is developing software takes years and it never works right. So,
Well, 10 years from now, probably no one on this board will be here, and most of the people who are writing this legislation may or may not be there. So it's easy for legislators to write stuff down and not have to implement it themselves and not have really a working knowledge of what they're requiring.
I would say that's true. That's true. Yeah. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, and I can pass it along like Commissioner Van Alstine suggested. I'll send it on to the group and kind of let you know, I'll see if I can highlight it or something, that section that has all these requirements. So.
Okay.
Don, you
Anything
look
else,
like you
Dan?
have a question. Okay. Well, I mean, I get the intent, I mean, as systems age, there's a lifespan, right? I mean, I understand the intent, but it is not, it's very subjective. I mean, it really depends on, I mean, you could have somebody that has a 30 or 40-year-old system that is pump their tank every, 3 or 4 years and, doesn't put things down the drain that they shouldn't. And, and the system works really good. They keep the trees cut back around the field. Or you can have one that, they don't pump the tank. They put things down the drain that, like bacon grease and, things of that nature. And there's trees growing all over, and those are going to be a problem, right? For sure. So it's not one size fits all. And I think, my view of this is like they're trying to put everything in there that they can possibly think of. I think it's getting pretty complex. And as I stated before, what made sense to us is just to have a point of sale program statewide. You sell your place, it gets inspected, people understand and expect that. There's money on the table, all those things. Again, I mean, we've talked about some of the other issues because I'm sure, Scott would like to accompany me out to a place that in East Jordan that says, get off my property. I don't want you doing this inspection. So, I mean, there's that problem, right? So prosecutors, enforcing law enforcement, helping with that process. I mean, there's definitely things, but as I can say that there has been this effort, has probably been the strongest effort that I've seen. There's been several efforts to do a statewide sanitary code. I don't know what kind of support this is going to have going into this lame duck session. It's going into committee, as I understand it, and we'll see where it goes from there. But
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Continuing on with my report. So last month at the Board of Health meeting, I was given the directive by the board to reach out to the Otsego County Board. Well, actually, what I did is I reached out to Commissioner Mason and Commissioner Turnbull and said, hey, what is the best way to approach the local appropriations conversation? Should I go to a board meeting? Should I go to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting? Their suggestion was to start with Matt Barassi, who's the county administrator, which I did. I reached out and talked to Matt, and then also he pulled in his director of finance, Mel Mayer, and we had a good conversation about local appropriations and the concerns that were raised here at this board. Mainly that Otsego has not, over the past 10 or 11 years, except for 1 year, has not contributed the full requested amount of local appropriations, while the other counties did. And they understood my concerns, the board's concerns, and actually what came out of that is that the finance director suggested taking that conversation to their Budget and Finance Committee. I offered to go there. She said, well, it's tomorrow, just let me broach it with the committee. She ended up getting back with me and said that the committee was supporting a full payment of appropriations this year. Of course, that has to be approved by the full board, which I don't believe has happened yet, unless I'm wrong, Commissioner Mason. But she said, obviously, going through the committee, making it through the committee, and then has to go to the full board. So that's where we're at. Just as an update. I will say regarding that issue, I was interviewed by a local reporter last week regarding this local, because I think what they did is they watched the last board meeting. And so you may see that also in the paper. But, I basically said the same thing that I'm telling you right now, is that we're working through the issue. So, does anybody have any questions about that before I move on?
Thanks for following up with that, Dan.
Yeah, no problem. So, as everybody knows here, I submitted my resignation letter. And as I stated, the decision to leave HCW was, very difficult. I really have had a great working relationship here, I think, with the board, and I'm going to miss the staff, and we just have a really great health department here, and the work that we've done has been really a great source of pride for me, and I'm humbled by the messages of support and gratitude I've received. And I just reiterate my commitment to a smooth transition as I approach my last day, which will be towards the end of November 24th. It's actually a Sunday, so really my last day in the office will be the 22nd. I appreciate the board's support and commitment, as we work through this process, and I'm here to help and be a resource for the board as we do this. So I just wanted to say that.
And we made it known in the committee meeting that that's the last day you can stay. You
Right.
can't stay any longer.
Right. That's correct.
That was a question.
Right.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Dan?
Yeah, right. Question.
Go ahead. Please make sure you're using your microphone there, Henry.
Yeah, Jeremy, have you heard whether there's anyone have there been any experimentations with perhaps plastic sheeting being used in the perimeter between tree line and septic systems and tanks? Have you heard of anything being done like that?
I don't like that. I could probably solve it. But I don't know. Sorry. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, no, Henry, to answer your question is I personally haven't heard any information, any scientific studies done on that. I would say, I mean, if you're blocking, a tree with that plastic sheathing, I'm sure the roots would divert in a different direction. So I think it could be a plausible solution for some people.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Mr. Thorell or for any of our directors who've submitted reports? Sir.
I seen Josh here. Where's he at? Oh, there he is. He's hiding over there.
Yeah.
What's the status on what was the 3E outbreak, and there's also one with West Nile virus. Can you give us an update on them?
The 3E triple E is Eastern equine encephalitis, and it's a virus that is transmitted via the bite of a mosquito. It can infect different animals and as well as humans. As West Nile virus is similar, triple E is a much more severe illness. And what the outbreak that you're talking about was found in a couple animals in Antrim County, and then I think now a bird in Otsego County. That's not unusual this time of year. Generally, late summer, early fall is when we see a larger number of these things. We've not had any human cases reported in the northern Michigan region that I'm aware of. So it's simply been found in the birds. So I think the importance is just to remind people that virus is out there. It's in the environment, and I can't pinpoint which mosquitoes have it or don't have it, but knowing that it's in that area, people can just remind them that they can take precautions to reduce the risk of mosquito bites, which is the only way you're going to be infected with these viruses.
Thank you.
I just add one thing. The one in Otsego was West Nile virus.
Oh,
so it wasn't triple E, but yeah. And just so you know too, I mean, West Nile virus is a little bit more prevalent where you see human cases more often. Triple E is pretty rare. And I think, nationwide, we only see about 5 to 10 cases, but it's pretty serious. I think a third of the cases end up.
Yeah, I think, a third to even a half of people are symptomatic, end up being hospitalized.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Okay.
And just one other thing too is what we ran into is we had a lot of people that were seeing what they thought were sick or, finding dead birds, and they were coming to our offices. So we had to send out another press release because we didn't know at the time. There is a method, a way that people can report these animals, and it's called Eyes in the Field through the DNR. So we put that link to that form on our press release, and then they can click on that and just report it, and then the DNR decides whether or not they're going to test it. But they want people to report it regardless, just so they have that information in the whereabouts. So
Perfect.
Were they only certain types of birds?
It's typically, I think the ones that they're going to test for triple E are typically birds of prey. And then like the one that was tested or found near Central Lake was an osprey. Mm. And then for West Nile virus, it tends to be crows are affected.
Yeah, crows, corvids, jays.
Corvids, yeah, blue jays. Yeah, so it is certain types of birds. But any animal, that you see that's acting unusual or you're not, you have a suspicion that maybe they were sick or died unusual cause or whatever, you can report on that form.
Okay, any further questions for any of our directors or for Mr. Thorell? All right, hearing none, let's move on to item number 8, committee reports. Personnel and Finance, Ms. Levanway.
Okay, what's on here on our agenda? The August bill and employee expense approval. I will make a motion, but I got to find the motion first.
Be good to have page numbers.
Okay, Neil and I went through the bills for the last month. So the Finance Committee met to review the bills and employee expenses and would like to make a motion for the full board to approve the August 2024 bills in the amount of $812,263.42 and the August 2024 employee expenses of $25,207.72.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please, Mel.
Commissioner Levanway,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Henkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the health officer vacancy and recruitment discussion. So we just talked about this in Personnel and Finance. And we do have a process that I believe we can adopt. Dan, go ahead if you want to.
Okay. So in your packet, there is a health officer hiring steps. We did talk about this in the committee, and I think what the committee really looking through that process. So there's a posting, recruitment options, various avenues for doing that. I think what the committee landed on is, more or less to post to these venues, skip the recruiting companies for now, because there is quite a large expense for that. And then really the makeup of the committee that would be reviewing the applications as they come in. And I believe, the conversation or the recommendation of the board was to have a special committee that would be made up of 4 Board of Health members. So it was less than a quorum.
One from each county.
One from each county. And I think that's probably what needs to be discussed here is and I have actually a proposed motion regarding that. And that was really only if a special meeting or a special committee was going to be appointed. And that is it's the next page after the hiring steps.
So let's take those in 2 different bites, Dan.
Sure. Yeah.
On the proposed motions, I would let the board know that on September 16th, a letter was drafted by Mr. Thorell formalizing his resignation. And I'm going to make a motion that we accept the resignation of the health officer, Dan Thorell, dated September 16th with an employment contract termination date of November 24th, 2024, which exceeds the requirement of 60 days notice.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion, Mr. Van Alstine?
His contract runs to November 1st, correct? November 1st to November 1st. Is that his contract times that he's hired? Correct?
That was
Okay.
correct.
So what happens with if we extend that to the 24th, how does his benefit package work? Does his benefits does it not roll over? Because if it rolls over for 23 days, that's a lot of expense. And I'm questioning that I mean, like vacation time and sick time, if he gets an accrual of another whole year by being only here 23 days, I struggle with that part of it, and I would like to have clarification on that.
I can,
That's a good call. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Dean.
yeah, it doesn't, vacation time accruals per pay period, so you don't get like a lump sum for the entire year. And anything having to do with health insurance, like the payment for our HSA cards, that comes in January. So it would be prior to that. I don't think in the contract actually says if it's not renewed that it just remains in place and just continues forward. But there are no payments that I'm aware of that would come into play. I'm just thinking more or less the health insurance payment contribution to the HSA. It is a lump sum in January, correct, Shannon? Yeah.
The reason I was asking that is like, some companies, now not health departments, but some companies, their new vacation time starts in January. So there's a lot of people that'll wait until the end of January, the 1st of February to leave. And then they get all that vacation time they've accrued for the whole next year, and they only work a month or two and got it. So that I wanted to make sure that that was not the case for this, because we need to, that's an added expense that we really don't need to discuss or to have come up. If, I don't know, if you get 3 weeks or whatever it is, we don't, if it's an accrual by the pay period, that's okay. That's not a big issue.
Right.
So
That's the way it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Levanway.
Could I just say that, can we change the motion to we just accept his resignation? Because we know in the committee meeting that one of the discussions that needs to be brought up by this special committee is the interim director or the future of an interim director. And maybe because I have not seen a contract and the rest of the people probably haven't either, that we need to move forward and approve of a resignation. But I would think that part of that would go into the interim position of that whole situation.
I don't think that's a separate issue.
It is compared to what we're trying to do originally. That's
no,
why.
I'm saying the interim position is separate in my mind from the resignation.
Right. I think we do need to make a resignation today, but do we need a date in there? That's my question.
well, his date is the date that he's going to be done,
Right.
whether one way or the other. So
Right.
we got to have an end date for him. So I would be, I mean, to have an end, to have a resignation and not have an end date on it, that's kind of like leaving it open. I mean, if he's willing to work to the 22nd or the 23rd, whatever that date is of Friday, then
22nd.
if we get things all put into place earlier than that, he'll be there just to help us get through some bumps and move forward with it. But
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on and valid points on the benefits and whatnot? I appreciate that. Any further discussion on the motion that was made? Hearing none, Mel, can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
With regret, yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
no, I'm just kidding. Got your attention tonight. Yes.
Commissioner Levanway.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Mel, I have a document for you to file then. And then moving on, in the discussion that we had in personnel meeting prior to this meeting, Dan, let me ask, how many people, current employees, meet the qualifications for local health officer that could be approved by the state as an interim? Because I say that because Dan initially was our interim on the resignation of our prior health officer. he was appointed, but there has to be an approval by the state board as well. So we can say, here's who we would like to appoint as our interim. But then there's letters that go back and forth between myself and the state saying, yes, we approve of that interim appointment. The appointment of an interim gives us some breathing room. Because Dan is done in less than 2 months' time from here, from today's date, it doesn't mean that we need to panic or rush into anything. We do need to take some prudent steps in getting an interim director appointed, but then that gives us some time to really go through applications, to leave the application process open for a while to make sure that we get good qualified candidates. And there may be some candidates internally that are interested in the position as well. Okay. But how many people currently on staff qualify as an interim?
Well, from the state standpoint, the interim position, it doesn't have the requirements for qualifications like the full health officer position, the permanent. It's based on a 6-month approval. So literally recognizing that there's a lot of small health departments out there, right, that maybe don't have the depth that, you know, some other health departments have. I mean, it literally could be most anybody, and typically is somebody on the administrative team that would serve in that role. They may not have like all the exact qualifications, but they will be approved. The state will approve them for up to a 6-month term.
Okay.
So typically, you know, a lot of health departments, I mean, I think it's written right into the deputy health officer's job description, you know, that they're the backup for the health officer. So not every health department has a deputy health officer. So, I mean, that's why it's fairly loose for that interim role, because it's time limited. And there's actually in the administrative rules that accompany the public health code, it has all those specific requirements and language for the interim, for the there's a provisional, like if let's say, you know, posting went out and there was the board decided to hire somebody that doesn't meet all the exact qualifications of the public health code, but it was close. For instance, maybe somebody that had a number of years of experience working in administration for a health department, but didn't have the correct master's degree. They would, you know, give a provisional approval to give that person time to go back and get their MPH, for instance, master's in public health. That's just an example. So it's unique, and it's really up to MDHHS as they look at that particular person, that circumstance, to determine, you know, if they're going to give provisional or full approval of that candidate, if that makes sense.
Okay. It does.
Yeah.
Now answer the question.
Well, the question, that was a politician's answer. But.
Yes.
I know.
Good.
I mean, we know that Holly has the right credentials to accept a health officer's position. Are there other staff members that have the same qualifications?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then my question becomes, do we need to do an application process for the interim spot? Nothing against you, Holly. I want to make sure we do things right here. I'm sorry? And that's a valid point, that as deputy health officer, you would act in the absence of the health
Correct.
officer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So board, what's your pleasure?
I have no problem with having a deputy health officer. That's your, like she said, that's your job, being an interim until we can find a new health director, being whoever that is. would like to, can we continue on and have this, is this part of where we can have a discussion about members of the special committee? Or do you want to wait on that?
I think we need to eat this elephant one bite at a time.
Okay, all right. I'm all right with,
And I like
Having-
what your thought
having the-
process
the
is, and I
deputy-
agree with you. I don't mean to interrupt you, Terry, but I agree with you that it is part of I was a deputy chief before. And that's the job, is to fill in when the chief is not there. I get that. So do you want to formalize that into a motion?
do we need to have a motion to have that? That's your job.
I think we need to, if we're going to recognize her as our interim health officer, I think we need to formalize that in a motion.
That's
Okay.
correct.
So be it. I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to appoint and maybe go ahead. She doesn't want the job. Never mind.
Yeah, we never even.
No, I definitely do. I was just curious about what that would look like as far as compensation for me to take
It's your job now.
Yeah.
with more responsibility, different job requirements.
I think to Terry's point, we'd need to look at the wording in your contract. I'm not opposed to a we're not going to be paying him after the 24th of November. I'm not opposed to paying her more because she is accepting more responsibility, at least in the interim.
Okay.
So let's
We need to figure that out. You can't make that decision today because you don't have the information.
Yeah,
we don't
I
have the
think
contract
this
in
needs to
front of
go to
us.
the special committee.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think it went contract with you, correct, when you became the interim?
Yeah, and Holly doesn't have a contract as the deputy health officer is a position on in our classification schedule. So only the health officer has a contract.
Okay.
In the medical.
Do you want to
And-
enter into a period of negotiation
Medical
with the
director,
Board of
sorry.
Health, Holly? Okay, well, so would it be appropriate, Terry, to table your motion until we discuss the compensation part? Because we don't want to make an appointment if she says, no, I'm not
Well,
going
we
to take
need,
it
we
for
need
that.
to write up, obviously, if that's the
Yeah.
case and she doesn't have a employment contract, we need to get an employment contract for a interim health director, and it'll have the compensation and everything in it. Yes, I will be glad to remove my motion.
Okay, hold on.
There would have to be terms.
What does your job description say regarding filling in the absence of
I
the
can-
health
I
officer?
can look up the,
I looked at it not too long ago. It just basically says that that when the health officer is not available, that the deputy health officer is the backup. It doesn't state anything about.
So it doesn't talk about an interim
It does not.
position.
It does not.
It needs to be looked at.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair,
Sir,
since we got nearly 2 months that Dan is still in that position, Terry's talking about discussing the contract for Holly. That wouldn't stop us from approving the ad hoc committee at this point,
No, that's
True.
next.
right.
which
Okay, and Mr. Van Alstyne did state that he would withdraw his motion. So that's off the table. Let's talk about the committee.
I will make a motion that we establish a special committee, because this is what we talked about in our committee meeting. We established a special committee that includes 4 people, 1 from each county, to get this process moving forward. And they will look at all the requirements. And when we talked in the committee, they would do the work. And then when it comes to the process of doing the interviews for the person, it would be the whole full board.
Okay, is that your full motion?
No,
Okay.
My full motion,
So
sorry, my full motion is to move to establish a special committee of 4 people, 1 from each county, to get the whole process, for the whole board. To hire
Mr. Van
a
Alstyne.
director for the whole board.
We should add the health officer, the medical director, and the HR person in that committee. Because if we review somebody's contract or information, and we need somebody that knows the medical side of it and the health director side of it, and we need the HR person there to make sure that we follow all the proper steps. So I would think that it'd be worthwhile to have them 3 in it also. That would make a committee of 7.
I would disagree with that. Because you're putting those people in the position of choosing their boss.
No,
Yeah.
we'll review, all of them will come to the full board. All of the applicants will come to the full board.
Okay. I'm going to use Dr. Meyerson as an example, and I don't mean to use you, but all right, let me rephrase that. I'm going to use the position of medical director.
Yeah.
Let's say we have 3 different applicants for the position, and Dr. Meyerson has a personal relationship with one of those 3. Not an inappropriate relationship, but has known them for years. Okay. I'm trying to keep both of us out of the doghouse, Josh. It would be inappropriate for him to sit on that selection committee, in my opinion.
He wouldn't be on the selection committee. He would bring in to review the stuff. The selection committee would end up being the board, the health board as a whole.
The health board would do the interview and the appointment, but the selection committee is going to review all the applications.
Would pick the people.
I think it needs to be limited to 4 board members so that we don't have a quorum. We don't have to have an open meeting. We can have frank and honest discussions. But I think to throw staff members in there who are going to work for that position puts them in a difficult position. That's my own opinion.
I would be willing to compromise on that. I will stand firm that we need HR there, due to the fact that you don't know, I don't know, and anybody else sitting on this board doesn't know all the ins and outs of all the regulations that Human Resources has. Every job applicant that we have that goes through the county, no matter who it is, Human Resources sets in on that just to make sure that we don't overstep our bounds and ask questions that we are not allowed to ask. And you and I, neither one know what all them questions are that you can't ask. So I would stay firm with an HR person there. I'm all right without the health officer and the medical director.
I will agree. I made the motion. I can agree with that.
Okay, Dr. Myers.
Yeah, well, I guess I was just going to add, I don't know that I'd want to be on the committee, but if you're on the, a member of the committee that selects the applicants to interview, but we certainly could be available to the committee to provide any input. I think, to have HR there to say, this applicant does not meet the qualifications, so there's no sense interviewing them, or they do, or something.
Right.
Certainly, and I'm happy to be available to the committee if they choose, but I wouldn't want to be necessarily on
I'm
the
all right
committee.
with that.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
I would
if
say the
you
same
will,
thing.
You want me to reread my motion?
Not yet. Hold on. If you will turn back a couple pages under qualifications, there are specific things that are set in statute, specific educational requirements that the local health officer has to have.
Right.
And HR wouldn't have anything different than what we have laid out in state statute as far as.
Do you know all the questions you can't ask?
I have been part of interview boards for the last 30 years. I know a ton of those questions.
I have too. I'm just saying we need to have HR there. Even if we have her there as a non-voting member, we could do that, but we need her there to make sure that we follow the newest human resources guidelines, and we could set that up that would be a non-voting person. So the only people that would have a vote would be the 4 commissioners.
But could that information be leading that they would be supplying, being?
No. No.
Again, you're talking about a potential staff member choosing their boss.
No, you weren't non-voting.
They're still, okay, what's the point of them being there then? If they're not going to have some sway and influence, what's the point of
To
them
make sure
being
that
there?
we don't go outside of our bounds. You're dealing with high-end professionals that know the ins and outs of all of the things. And if we do it wrong,
Okay,
I don't want to get into a lawsuit that states that we didn't follow appropriate guidelines to interview a person.
okay. There are going to be interview questions that the committee will put together. I'm good with HR reviewing those interview questions because you have to interview each of the applicants with the same questions.
Correct.
So why don't we just have HR review those and make sure that those are appropriate questions?
I'm not budging.
Okay,
Could we make?
you and I can disagree. I still like you, but we can disagree.
Can I make a suggestion? Actually,
Hold that
Okay.
thought, Mr. Mason.
Could we make a motion concerning this, whether we need the HR present? We could make a motion and make that choice between us.
Well, we have one motion that's been made.
So
Yeah.
this would precede that motion.
Well, you can't, you gotta go
We
on
gotta
to one
address
that's
that
already
motion
on the
first
table.
Mr.
Yeah.
Thorell, you had a question or a statement.
You can
Well,
amend it.
actually, this was, Holly suggested this, and, perhaps, I mean, it costs a little bit of money, but we could have our attorney, present for those, if there's 1 or 2 meetings to fill that role as an, whether it's Matt Cross or somebody from his firm that specializes in human resources. Just a thought.
It's expensive.
Okay.
It's expensive, right?
Don't we have a human resources person?
We do.
Okay. That's not their job.
Their job is to sift through applicants and, for the agency, it is their job. I'm just saying, I'm just proposing that as another option. If
I will change my motion. I think HR should be there. I do. There's lots of issues that go up. I agree.
Okay, so I want you to.
And this committee does have a lot to do.
Okay.
I would like to amend the motion.
I would like to take a breather for a minute. She already said she wants to amend her motion.
I
I
can
want you
amend
to, but I want to be specific. So
Right.
don't just wing it. Make
Okay.
sure we know exactly what we're voting on.
Okay. It was to move to establish a special committee, which would be 1 person from each county to get with the HR director. Is it HR director? What did the person? Manager. With HR manager as a non-voting member to get the health director process for the whole board. Does that sound right?
No.
Okay, to get the health director.
department process,
And-
health department officer or health officer process doesn't make sense to me.
Health
Read it specifically from,
To get the health officer
recruitment process.
recruitment process
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay,
for the whole board, correct? For the whole board, because that's when we will.
yes,
Okay,
okay. So you withdrew your prior motion, is that correct?
correct.
And that is the current motion. Mel, do you have that?
I will write it down so you can have it.
Okay.
Okay, I will read it again. To move to establish a special committee of 1 person from each county who will sit on this special committee to get with the HR manager as a non-voting member to get the health officer recruitment process for the whole board.
So Melanie, you got that? Can you repeat that, please?
I will listen to the recording and just
Dawn's
record
gonna
it verbatim.
I'm going to write it down for her.
Well, if you're going to write it down, I want to see it before I vote on it.
Okay.
Words matter, folks.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay. So that's why a while ago I was having you guys get those little notepads so that we had specific motions written out so that we all understand what we're voting on. Henry, does that address your concern?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Hinkins?
Yes.
When we remove a motion, does that need to be voted on? To remove a
No, the mover has removed it from the table. So no.
That's correct.
I'm writing as fast as I can.
It's all right.
I'll let Melanie read it.
Okay, Don's motion is, I move to establish a special committee of 4, 1 from each county, including HR manager as a non-voting member to get health officer recruitment process for the whole board.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkins,
No.
Commissioner Mason,
No.
Commissioner LeBanway,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
No.
tied vote, motion failed.
Okay. Now what's your pleasure, board?
I voted no
I
because
move that we adjourn the meeting and move on. We can't even make a dang decision on getting an interview process together.
we're working on it.
Well,
I just
We can still re-enter a motion.
I'm not
to-
opposed to the motion. It doesn't, somehow or other, it just doesn't sound right to me.
The motion wording or with the process?
The wording.
Oh,
All we have to do is re-enter the motion to approve the 4 members, 1 from each county. We could still get that done today.
I'm in agreement with the HR manager being there. I don't have an issue with that at all. All this stuff is new to me, and I know motions are important. It just seems like there's something missing from
what?
that one.
Well,
what?
Can I say one thing? I mean, I have a written motion here in the packet. I don't know if maybe
Yes.
inserting a few words in
yeah,
that motion.
I think I can do that. I was just kidding about adjourning.
Yeah, no, you weren't. You were getting red in the face. You were serious.
I move to establish a special committee to review and select applicants to the interview for the position of the health officer with one board member from each county serving on a committee and the HR director being included as a non-voting member.
okay, there's a motion.
Does that sound better to you?
One more time, please.
I move to establish a special committee to review and select applicants to interview for the position of health officer with one board member from each county serving on the committee, along with a non-voting HR manager.
And the purpose of the motion or the purpose of the committee is?
It says in there already to review and select applicants to interview for the position of health officer. Basically, I just added a couple words of Dan's
The end.
proposed motion.
Okay, one more time again, please.
I move to establish a special committee to review and select applicants to interview for the position of the health officer, with one board member from each county serving on the committee and a non-voting member of the HR manager.
Thank you. We finally clicked.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing to clarify? Once that special committee reviews and selects applicants, they would be interviewed by the full board.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure
That's what
Sure.
it's, yeah.
understood that
Yeah.
part of it. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hankins,
No.
Commissioner Mason,
No.
Commissioner LeVanway,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. So we have,
You have work to do.
well, the next thing we can do is we can select the 4 members of the committee. Ms. LeVanway has already expressed
out.
that she's not interested. Mr. Aaron's is not here to speak for himself, but as both of them will not be here next year, I think it's fair to say that they shouldn't be considered.
I'm willing to allow you if you'd like it. Michelle.
See how he took one for the team there?
Josh, we decided it's Scott anyways, because he's the only person that's left here from the last time.
That's exactly it.
Okay, so do we, I know in our county governments, the chair gets to select members for different assignments. Is that true here as well?
Well, you only got one because you gotta have Don.
I gotta have Emmett County.
You gotta have.
I gotta have you.
So the only one you got's at Seagull. You could pick one of 2.
Okay.
Or you could ask Henry if he
Henry
wants to be on it and be done
over
with it.
I don't want to be on it, but I'll be done with it. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion that the special committee designated to review applications for the position of health officer be myself, Mr. Mapes from Emmett County, Mr. Van Alstine from Antrim County, and Mr. Mason from Otsego County. Is there a second?
Yes, sir.
Seconded by Mr. Van Alstine. Let's have a roll call there, please, Mel.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner LeVanway.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay. See, we're getting stuff done.
We are.
All right. There's some timelines in this proposed hiring process that Dan has put together. And I appreciate you taking the time, Dan, to kind of organize the thoughts here. I think because we have a committee now, I think we'll look at setting a committee meeting
Soon.
to proceed with the hiring process. Now, having said that as well, I'm going to make another motion regarding the posting and recruitment options that we post on the Michigan Association of Local Public Health website, on the Michigan County's website, on Indeed.com, on all of our local chambers of commerce websites, and
Zip.
on the health department of Northwest Michigan website as well.
I would like to add like ZipRecruiter and some of them.
I don't know what, well, that's what the Indeed is. I'm not sure what kind of expense we're looking at with ZipRecruiter.
I'm
I
not
don't know.
sure neither. I talked to our HR girl in Antrim, And that's one of the ones she gets the biggest hit on is ZipRecruiter.
Okay.
And maybe, I don't know if it costs anything to do Lincoln.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn, we might want to look at that also.
Well, okay, so I'll amend my motion that we also consider ZipRecruiter and LinkedIn dependent on expense.
Okay.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have roll call, please,
But
Mike?
hold on a second.
Whoop.
Do we want, is this the place that we're gonna post this job description? Is this the place that we should, if the board is in interest of it, is to have it be somebody that is gonna either A, live here, or B, move here to have in that 4-county area? Or are we not gonna, I mean, we don't want a guy from Bay City driving up here to run the health department.
We have a guy from Traverse City right now.
I understand.
I
I'm just
don't know if
asking.
Well,
I don't know if we can make a requirement because I think there's state law, for example, for law enforcement, you have to live within 20 miles of your boundary. And I think that would apply to other governmental positions as well. So I don't know that we can require somebody to live in the 4-county district.
With all due respect, sir, I just read online. I was actually looking to see if our posting was still up, and there's a posting for a health officer in the Western UP, and they have a requirement that you have to move there prior to accepting the position.
Can we discuss all this in a special committee? Because I have a concern about a person that's the health officer being here. Not working from home, but being here. I think that that's really important. So to me, there's things on that job description I think need to be added and discussed before that is posted.
Before it's posted?
Yes. Yes, because if I'm going to apply for a position, I'd like to know if I need to live there. I need to know if I need to be there in person, how many days a week, if it's hybrid or not. I think that that's really important, what you're expecting. There's lots of positions right now that are hybrid.
Well, no, you're right. There are.
Let's get it, see how fast we can put a meeting together and let's hammer out that and then get it posted.
Okay. Today's Tuesday.
Is that something you could stay after this meeting, just discuss that? I mean, there's 2 issues. That's what it sounds like.
Are you good with sticking around for a little while?
Sure.
Yeah, I can stick around.
Terry, you're good. Don, you're good. Okay. Well,
is there any concerns
but,
that somebody else has?
Okay, but wait a minute. We need to have, because we're talking about spending money, we need to have board approval, and that would then bump us to November before we even post the position.
No, let's discuss now, and we'll give that committee the authority to do that after they make a decision. So we need to discuss what our issues are. I have a concern of what we expect.
Short meeting.
Oh,
I don't think you just bump that out in the next 5 minutes.
Can we set that up that we want to go ahead and we'll approve to spend the money to post the job description once the job description is finalized, so the financial part's done, and then we can have a committee meeting to hammer out all the fine details, but we don't have to come back in November to post it. We can say, okay, here you go, HR, go ahead and post it. It's ready to go.
Okay.
Can we do that?
So we can, but we have a motion on the table right now, so I'm going to withdraw that motion that I had made. Ma'am.
I'm sorry, I just need clarification. Are we deciding the salary before we post the job description, or is that something they're going to negotiate later? Like, you could also negotiate work arrangements and things like that. I'm just trying to make sure I understand from the financial aspect. What money are we talking about?
I think in the posting, it would be salary is negotiable.
Okay.
Because we have,
you could.
I mean, we're not giving somebody the sun and
Right.
the stars
Right.
to move here.
Do it that way and that leave.
Well, and you don't know what their qualifications are either. You might.
Correct.
Okay.
Melanie,
That's-
that's a good point. And we could negotiate both of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
We could
that's,
negotiate salary and work
Location.
schedule all at the same
Schedule.
time.
Well, maybe we don't need to have the special committee meeting then if we just want to add those two parts to our posting.
Yeah, well, we have to decide on do we want them to live in our area? That's the only other thing that I have an issue with. I don't want to have, like I said, I don't want to have somebody in Bay City running the health department in Northwest Michigan. They should be somebody that's, and we could say 30 miles out of our area, we could say 50 miles out of our area, but they need to be somewhere close by. Because if they're going to work here every day, you know, they're not going to be driving from Bay City all the way up here to work every day, because that's just not feasible.
We know, we've had EMS.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be all right. I mean, if we want to put a mileage on it, like you said, you have to be within 20 miles of your work because you're law
Of the
enforcement.
jurisdictional border,
Well, now
yeah.
you're retired law enforcement, but
Well, right now I'm still working, yeah.
we could do that. We could put 20 miles within the 4-county area. That gives them a big circle all the way around.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I'm wondering how that is to be worded so that if you do find a person who you think is very good and there's no housing and they can't find housing, it's something in there should be negotiable, but I don't know how.
You can't have it both ways.
I know,
We
I'm
either
just
require them
saying.
to live here or we don't.
Well, I think we should, but sometimes people give them a period of time and sometimes you don't. And that's why I think this committee needs to discuss this stuff, because those are things that are really important that affect the whole place.
I agree. So we'll have a special committee meeting right after this meeting, if that's acceptable with the committee members.
Yep.
Yes. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
We still need to make a motion to do the expenditure to post the job description after we get the special committee approval on the job description.
I think that was exactly the way I was going to word it.
I
Thank you,
made that
Jerry.
motion.
All right. We have a motion there,
I'll support.
seconded. Any further discussion? Please not.
I guess.
Okay. Mel, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner LeVanway,
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstine,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay.
can I,
No.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
just really quick? I'm just thinking through the special committee and what we have been doing, you know, for instance, Personnel Finance Committee, Program and Evaluation Committee, we've been posting those as public meetings. Okay. We don't have to, it's not an OMA requirement because we don't have a quorum, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page regarding that. I think it's especially important when the committee is reviewing applications, because I believe that should be confidential for those that are applying.
Correct.
Okay,
And we don't have to have it be a open meeting so we can review them in confidence.
correct.
Okay.
So,
Good with that.
We'll do the interview process in an open meeting, but we
have-
won't.
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So any of the special committee meetings will be just committee meetings, not public meetings.
Right.
Right.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page because that came up as an issue in the past. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Program and Evaluation Committee, Engaging Wellness Grant Opportunity, Mr. Thrall, Ms. Pong.
Okay, thank you. So this opportunity came up and we pulled together the Program and Evaluation Committee to go over this grant proposal for Engaging Wellness. It is a pilot project that goes from January 1st to September 30th of 2025. and would only be in Emmett County to start. And it is really about working with individuals to come up with a wellness plan to help them be more healthy. And that's my segue, my introduction, because Janine has been very involved with this and knows the ins and outs of this particular grant application. So I'll let Janine take it from here.
Hello, thank you. We were interested in this grant because it really approaches things from two different levels, an individual level and then a committee level. So it would be a volunteer community committee that we would work with. We want to make sure we cross demographics. One of the things that we discussed with the Program and Evaluations Committee was the need to increase services to our growing senior population, based on demographics and what's happening in our area. And also, I think the big part of this grant that we were interested in is there was a lot of leeway in developing, an innovative approach. I was especially personally interested in the individual style of it because years ago I was involved in a program at the hospital called Fit for Life, and it assessed, kind of individual areas of need, and they were like fully partnering with each person. And it was just really valuable for me at the time. I was a much less healthy person at that point. So I could hearken back and see the benefits of that program in my life and look at how we could work with these individuals to create a realistic plan based on their priorities, and then kind of help them launch, kind of a wellness plan in their lives. And then overall, from the committee point of view, we have resources that we've already invested in through MyThrive, where we have available information that they can pull from, make sure that we're tailoring, again, a very simplified, achievable plan that will create a wellness culture within that community. And then kind of if we determine, I guess, after this, it's a short grant, it's only 9 months. It's $40,000. We would use current staff. We would not hire anyone new. We have a nutritionist on staff. We have someone who has already worked with the public from like a physical health standpoint. So really, we would be building on some of the skills that we already have in the agency. So we just we answered a lot of questions at the Program and Evaluation Committee level and are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Have we already missed the deadline here? It looks like it's September 12th.
We had to submit a letter of interest, which we have done. If you do not support our official applying for it, we will have to withdraw that. It's not a preferable situation, of course. You don't want to be submitting your name for things and then withdrawing them, but it's kind of the nature of the deadlines and how quickly you don't get a long time frame. So I guess that was another consideration when we decided to move forward with this grant opportunity with you all, was that it wasn't going to take staff tons of hours. It wasn't an overly complicated application. So that's where we stand.
Okay.
And with the Program and Evaluation Committee reviewing it, and it was unanimously approved to move forward there. And that's, why we submitted that letter of intent. Right. With their recommendation coming to the full board.
Anybody else have any questions for Dan or Janine regarding this?
Over time, one experiences that bad habits are really tough to break. And so these programs like this, what magic bullet do you have lined up to really address and convince people that as they get older, they've got to change their bad habits?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think listening to them and finding out, I think a lot of times, there's so much information out there with people now. It's like, should I be paleo, keto? I mean, there's just so much, there's inundated if you're on any of the social sites and stuff like that. So I think what we want to do is really, we'll be meeting with the individuals, individually, and then really listening to what they have to say. What are their primary issues? And then maybe pick like 3 primary areas that can be addressed that will make the biggest difference for them. And so it's like we're partnering with them. You know what you need to do, but I think sometimes people act like they have to have, all 15 points covered, and then they get overwhelmed and they do really well for a short period of time, and then they revert back to the bad habits. So I feel like a simplified, doable approach, and then the partnership of moving it forward will really be helpful. Is an example, like one of the things that I learned in the Fit for Life program was we took like a test, and I never expected this. I learned that I'm a very strong team player and that I wasn't making the best choices for me, like putting me first, like just for me. So what I had to do was, think about my family. So that was a bigger motivator for me, that they kind of assisted me in changing my mindset, that yes, I can help me, but the whole motivation is if I'm healthy, then I can like serve my family better and love my family better and be here longer. So sometimes I think just meeting people where they're at and finding out what their primary concerns are, and then tailoring a plan around that. And then if this is something that was successful, that we deemed we would, want to continue with and was able to be funded in the future, the hope would be that these individuals who have been successful will become part of the community group and continue to pay it forward, because then they're going to be able to tell us what worked best for them, what helped them change those, kind of unhealthy habits.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So this only takes place in Emmett County too. It's a test program.
Correct. It's
grant
a pilot
to see if this really works. They'll go forward or not go forward.
Right.
So it's not like it's going to be here. Well, we don't know if it's going to be here forever, but it's kind of a neat trial. And we may be selected, which would be pretty neat.
I've never seen a trial that didn't grow bigger and never end.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, Henry, but the thing that struck me the most is folks are going to get referred from other organizations to this program. The ones that some of the senior centers might have people that they feel are falling through the cracks, and they've reached the end of their abilities to be able to motivate these people. And so then they're going to be referred to this program. I think that was the part that sold me the most on this, was the referral issue. I agree, Henry, that sometimes things that get started, once they get started, they kind of snowball and you can't stop them after that. But I think this is a good program. I recommended it.
Okay. Would anybody like to make the motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. I'll second it.
Okay, so it's been moved by Mr. Mapes to allow Health Department staff to seek the Engaging Wellness Grant. It's been seconded by Mr. Van Alstyne. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner LeVanway,
Yes.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Alstyne,
Yes.
Commissioner Mapes,
Yes.
Commissioner Higgins,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason.
No.
Motion carried.
Okay, that moves us to unfinished business. We have none. That moves us to new business. We have none. That moves us to public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to address the Board of Health, again, we'd ask you to step to the podium, state your name and where you reside. We'll give you 3 minutes to address the board, and I'll give you the friendly 30-second warning. Would anyone like to address the Board of Health?
Oh, Mary, you just can't sit there all day.
She just did. Okay, public comment is now closed. Commissioner comments, Mr. Mason.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the last meeting, in my chat when Dan gave a phone call concerning the yes. Now that thank you. It was interesting to see how that did build up. And I reminded him at the end of the chat, I said, it's amazing how it was a 2.7 match for every dollar put in by the counties. And so these things feed, that's a very generous match. It's huge. And so it's easy to become emotional And that did happen to some degree in that last meeting. And yes, after looking a little closer, we had, at that time, we had already had 4 years of negative return on millage. The millage was actually dropping in Otsego County. And we had 1 year after that, I believe 2014, flatlined. But the fact is that we keep, Jeremy gets the money, and whether he were to get it through these grants or through the grants and the fees from the county, or whether you go directly to the homeowner. And technically that's the best place for the money to come from. And I felt when it became so emotional, I thought how wonderful it is when government creates this type of situation. And even the financial team handled it very well, very professionally, but there was a little emotion with them too. And it's too bad it comes down to these grants firing us up in opposition to one another. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Van Alstyne.
Nothing.
Ms. Levanway.
Nothing.
Mr. Mapes. Mr. Chamberlain.
I just had one question, Dan, talking earlier about looking for a new health officer. Do we still have a lot of employees working from home?
So we have a telework and flexible work policy. So we have some employees have the opportunity to work 3 days in the office and 2 at home. And not all positions.
Okay.
Some positions you just can't do that because they have to be there in the office. But some positions, like an accountant, so to speak, that's perfectly acceptable and it works. Part of that is just being competitive in the workplace, because there's a lot of employers that have that, ability. And so that's part of the reasoning that we have that in place. And we've had that in place for, I think that policy's been in place for about 2.5, 3 years.
All right.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
I have nothing further. I would take a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion, we adjourn.
Motion, I'll second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.